Now, 3 weeks have passed, and we're at the halfway point of the spring sprint. I'm pumped to see what the remaining round robin has in store for us as I kick things off with Mark Zimmerman, Alorum, and Emily Rand. How are the three of you doing? Anyone do anything interesting over the last couple days?
Nope.
Watched some LPL. Burned my
nothing.
hand making coffee, you know.
Burnt your hand making coffee, watching the LPL. One of those things sounds better than the other. What any good series that, like, for those of us maybe who don't stay up into the wee hours of the morning, what would be the one that we should go back and watch the VOD of?
I mean, it was kind of the games themselves. Well, okay, watch EDG IG just because it's the first time that EDG lost this year thus far, and I think
now
points
it's
out.
spoiled.
Yeah.
Now I'm not
sorry.
watching it,
Sorry.
Emily. Thanks a lot.
I didn't even think about that. Oh, jeez. I'm so bad about spoilers. Wow. I'm just going to shut up now.
Disaster.
Wow.
Disaster.
I've already ruined the broadcast.
1 minute into the broadcast, it is ruined. Somebody hit the reset button. All right, Alorum, how about you? How was your week?
My week was pretty good. My team in amateur, Zeus Gaming, named right after my cat. We qualified for the Proving Grounds, so along with TSM and two other amateur teams.
What'd you play?
TSM Academy.
That's awesome.
I played
man. Congrats.
Malphite and Wukong and, Urgot. All the specialty Alorum picks are coming out for the Proving Grounds.
The Malphite made me so happy. I saw it get tweeted, and I instantly tuned in. Don't tell me if this is the case because I want to live in my fantasy if it's not, but I believe you picked that champion solely for me, and you popped off with it, and that was awesome to see. Well, returning here to the LCS, currently we got Cloud9 sitting alone in first after 9 games with 100 Thieves, Dignitas, and TSM all one win behind them at 6-3. It is a tussle at the top. We got teams like Evil Geniuses and Team Liquid needing to make that climb from 5-4, but well within striking distance. 9 games remaining in this portion of spring here for all of our teams to make moves. We'll see which one of them can kick off the second round robin on the right foot. With game 1 today, we've got Golden Guardians trying to get the better of our first place team. That's 7-2 versus 2-7. When it comes to the records, we got a surging TSM aiming to take down the lock-in champions Team Liquid, but by scoreline, TSM would be the favorite. And then Evil Geniuses versus FlyQuest and 2 more matches before we call it a day. Now, we start the second round robin on patch 11.4, which most notably affects the jungle. And sometimes it feels, Mark, like when we're looking at the jungle changes, they could be the hardest to process, the most nebulous in some ways.
Yeah, and so I definitely want to take an actual look at some of the numbers to get a feel for what the impact is. Everyone knows it's jungle nerf, but what you'll see is that a lot of it's actually targeted towards some of the later levels that's going on. Yes, there's about 10 off the first clear XP, but then when you reach 9, it's more around 15 or so. And so it kind of scales over the course of the game. Gold is different. It's just a flat, straight nerf on how much gold you're going to be getting. And so there will be this kind of knock-on effect as you continue jungling. It's not like your first clear is going to be different. It's not like you need to change your jungle paths necessarily, but once you get later into the game, you'll find that it's a little bit harder to be the highest person in the game, and it's a little bit harder to hit some of your first mythic items and some of these breakpoints that you're really, really looking for, especially in pro play.
And to follow up on that, the reason why a lot of people going into this patch were like, oh, we're going to see tank junglers, or like it's going to be a tank jungler meta, is just because when you're a carry jungler, you're a lot more reliant on items to do damage, right? It's pretty much that simple. So like what Mark was talking about, when you're delayed in building those items, you can opt to go for something like a Sejuani, maybe flexing the Gragas. We haven't seen it thus far. In LEC, we've still had our regular fast clearing, Lilias, Hackrams, Udyr was permaban on red side still. But I think as the patch evolves, I do hope to see some of those maybe like early ganking CC junglers back.
Yeah, and those junglers by name, Elise and Rek'Sai, are probably the most popular ones. Tank junglers are good because they're economy friendly, and the nerfs, while they don't have that much impact, maybe could increase the play rate of these ganking junglers, especially from players like Blabber who really like to gank even on these farming junglers. So, and with that, we'll probably see a little bit more fighting and scrappy laners if that's what the teams are planning around.
And the other thing I'll just throw on there, too, is it's only LEC who's gotten games on this patch right now. LPL and LCK are still on 11.3. This is our first time seeing it, and so there could be a bit of sticking to comfort right now until you see more of the meta develop. So we'll have to see if, is Udyr really going to be permaban red side still, or are there going to be more counters now that his insane clear doesn't give him quite as much of an advantage?
A quick note for the viewers at home, the graphic that you see below us, the jungle clear comparison, that would be the first 2 clears if you were to do a full clear in the jungle and the resulting gold and XP gained. And so, I mean, looking at that, I mean, I see, 80 gold, a little less than 100 XP. It doesn't feel so bad, but as you mentioned, Mark, as the game scales, those XP nerfs get a little bit stronger, and so it'll be towards that mid-game where maybe the junglers really start to feel the effects of being just a little bit behind in the XP accruation. Is that a word? If it's not, I'm making it a word.
You
All
can't.
right.
Accumulation. I don't know.
It should be a word. That's a good big word right there. That's like a $10 word. Okay, what about bot lane changes? Because jungle might be nebulous, but when it comes to the bot lane, we saw some more specific changes to a couple of very specific champions. Most notably here, Samira.
She's dead.
In the jungle. Eek out.
They nerf her really hard. As you can see the numbers, I'm not going to go through the specific changes, but the most important thing to note is that I hope you guys got all of your Samira love out on 11.3 because she is not as good on 11.4, and we have a lot more ranged carries coming back into the meta. We have Varus getting some buffs to his empowered Q. We've already seen both Caitlyn and Jinx in LEC. So I am kind of hoping for a transition from more of these short-range compositions with Kai'Sa and Samira to some maybe longer range with Jinx, with Caitlyn, with Varus, obviously, like poke lethality Varus. So yeah, hopefully we'll see that. And we already did see some swaps up in the bot lane during LEC this morning.
And with these longer range champions in the bot lane, we can maybe see a little bit more support. So I'm expecting Karma Flex to be kind of a big play in this upcoming these games. And because she can be played mid and support, they're very good with the long range. And if we're not playing Karma Flex, and since Azir is so popular right now, we can expect a very fan favorite matchup, the Corki Azir. I know we've already seen it a little bit, but I'm expecting it to come back in full force for these long range comps to come in.
Yeah, and then you get all the poke and Corki shooting missiles, Varus shooting Qs, especially since that's, the big change that they stuck onto his kit is just making the lethality Varus even stronger. So I hope we're not heading for this kind of scaling pokey meta, but it's starting to feel like that.
Yeah, I was about to ask over under on the average game time from this point forward in the LCS. What are we gonna be at? Like 35 minutes average, 40 minutes average?
Give me that Golden
like
Guardians game
Varus?
every game.
I mean, we've already had some long bangers in the LCS.
Now, even more reason to have some more of those. Well, in Game 3, we do have another battle in good versus evil. So to give us a quick preview of that matchup, here's Pastry and Azael.
Thank you, Dash. And for FlyQuest versus Evil Geniuses, we're turning to the top lane matchup, where the expectations have shifted slightly since the first time these teams faced off.
Yeah, they have. I think that the top lane matchup is going to be really interesting. When we were coming into lock-in, people were talking a lot about Impact playing aggressive, but it turns out it was mostly about the Renekton pick. He dominated on that in the lock-in tournament, but come on into Spring Split, he really hasn't had an answer, for other carries to put forth once that has been banned out. And every team has just been banning that Renekton against him. So he is kind of falling back in that pattern that he was in on Team Liquid, where he's becoming pretty predictable in his picks. We've seen that people are willing to blind pick things like Aurelia against him, knowing that he won't bring out Jax. And that's not to say he's playing poorly. Impact is playing really, really well, but he is sticking very much in his own wheelhouse. And as a result, I think that's something that FlyQuest could potentially exploit. They know what kind of champions he wants to play. And if Jose Dioto is willing to play around Licorice, this is a very flexible player who could get the counter pick up in that top lane, and maybe that's a way in for FlyQuest here today.
Yeah, we certainly know that Licorice is willing to pick carries and potentially punish, so we'll dive into that matchup later. But a reminder that there is more on the line in game number 3 than we could ever know, as the forces of good and evil clash once more.
I haven't listened to this thing, so I'm going to crank it up.
Since the dawn of time, there has been a battle between the forces of good and evil. Jedi versus Sith. Everyone versus the Patriots. NA versus EU. Kittens versus shitty kittens. Today, planet Earth will witness the next chapter in this never-ending war. One wants to watch it all burn. To hell with the consequences. The other wants to save a bunch of stuff. Like bees. Why do you hate bees? They make honey and won't mess with you if you leave them alone. Evil geniuses. Evil. It's in the name right there. I mean, look at these two guys. Who are you bringing home to mom? Or what about these two? The dude has freaking horns on his head. FlyQuest versus Evil Geniuses. The fate of the world hangs in the balance.
Welcome back to the LCS Countdown, where I have to congratulate Mark, our CEO, as we approach the opening of our newest business venture, McDonald's.
Yeah, as you know, Dash, I'm happy to finally be able to introduce to the public and the masses the McDonald's chain, our all LCS fast food experience. But it's not quite ready yet. We still have some work to do on the menu. It's a little sparse, so I'm going to need ideas. I'm going to outsource it to all of you guys. I'm going to need some help. Alorum, kick me off.
All right. So right away, and you got to bear with me, we got the whole entire Dignitas meal, and what we do is we advertise that it's 6 spicy nuggets, but when you order it and it gets back to you, you get 10 spicy nuggets. That's more than you hoped for.
Oh, I kind of like that. I kind of like that. That's like an under-promise, over-deliver situation, right?
That's right.
And
That's
now that we have Dardock, we can include multiple toys. Like, people love collecting stuff, right? Like, maybe Kane gets repeated, but then you have to really, really dig to get that Karthus, you know? And everyone's going to want to collect every single one based on how many jungle champions he's playing.
I love that.
Buying Dignitas.
Yeah, trick them into keep coming back so that they have to get all of them. And then
I was gonna say,
you get Blue Cane.
Right. There's how many jungle champions in the pool, and what if, here's an idea, we just don't make one of the jungle champions into a figurine, but we advertise it anyway, so that you can never fulfill the collection. There's just
Setting
the
up
idea.
Mark for success right off the bat, you know?
It's the concept of running the gamut there, right?
We are not above false advertising in this industry, okay? So, if you have any other ideas like that, James, let me know, because I still need another menu.
All right, well, this one isn't so much false advertising, but I think there's a sector of the market that we're not really playing into right now, you know, and I think it's a shortcoming of calling maybe it a fast food chain, but here's my idea. It's called the TL meal, the Team Liquid meal. You got the Dutch Kobe beef. It's this new strain of Kobe beef coming right out of the Danish lands. Truffle mushrooms from Wales, of all places, a little gochujang. Help me out with that one, Emily. Gochujang spread from Korea. Some authentic Danish bread. It retails for $74.99. Is completely encrusted in 24-karat gold flake. What do you think?
Look at how happy Steve is, you know?
We got one customer. I know that.
Chef's
we got
kiss.
one customer.
Well, it's beautiful.
I mean, I like it. We got to appeal to all of our fan bases, and there's those people who don't care where the food's coming from. They don't care. They just want the highest quality food, highest quality ingredients they can get. This is a great cornerstone item. I'm gonna need some sides though. This is a lot of meals. Some people want individual, little finger foods, dollar menu stuff. I need an idea for that.
That's right. So now what I got coming up next for you, you're going to love, the people are going to love. It's called the Jizuke fries. And what it is sometimes you get it right out of the fryer. It's nice and crispy. You love it. And then other times it's been in there for an hour and a half. You're coming in right after the lunch rush ends. You get those soggy fries and it's just awful. So you just, sometimes you get the best of all time. It's your favorite fries. And sometimes you just want to throw it right in the trash.
I mean, either way, you're going to tell your friends about it, right? Like, man, sometimes they're really, really, really good. And then you just have to roll the dice.
There's a principle in design that you don't want to just leave people neutral with it, So either make it the best is going to be or the worst. And some people love it and some people hate it. You don't want apathy. And I think soggy fries that we're coin flipping when we take them out of the fryer is exactly what we need.
Oh my good! You know what? And I love the word coin flip, Mark. Here's what I'm thinking: it should literally be a mini game within the restaurant. Every 15 minutes, the fry cook has to flip a coin. Lands heads, you go ahead and throw the bat shot. You make a fresh one. Lands tails, you let them ride, baby. Just let them ride for the rest of the day and see what everybody gets.
Some of those bad boys are going to be frozen.
Jizuke fries will be a hot selling item.
All right, so I know, Mark, that most of this has been about new ideas, and it's great that we're adding new things to the menu. But I know Primal also. He's out sick today. He wasn't able to make it to the board meeting, but he did shoot me an email, and he wanted to make sure that we touch on this, the CLG Sag meal, my friend. It's been a mainstay of the menu, but we know it's been a kind of a rocky and contentious part of the menu. What are we thinking here? How do we kind of rework this to really make it a new thing? Or at least a meal.
I mean, we already changed the mid lane meat patty, right? Like pole belter's coming in this week, so you know,
that's
like
a good
it'll keep that faith. I mean, we're pretty much out of faith sauce here, as you can see from this lovely graphic. But you know, I think that could help maybe refill some of those bottles, or you know,
No, you keep
Nah.
The thing about faith is you can't see it. You just have to believe it's there. And so, you know, we can just keep dumping on that faith sauce until you believe it tastes better and good enough that, you know, you still want to order this for the CLG fans.
I want these CLG fans to take this seemingly empty faith sauce. They need to put it upside down and bang on it until something comes out. It doesn't matter if there's nothing in there. I need to see tears coming out of their eyes. We need some more faith sauce, please. But
I think we found it. The answer.
I know.
The answer to the
It's not
CLG Sats
coming.
meal.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate all the suggestions you guys have for me, but I'm always looking for more, and I'm not above tapping the esports community and using them and repurposing fan content for free. So if any of you guys have any suggestions, feel free to shoot them our way. Any tasty ideas using the Twitter hashtag LCS.
Yeah, that's what we do best, repurposing community content for our own monetary gain. Game 1, though, is serving us up a David and Goliath matchup of Golden Guardians versus Cloud9. And for the development roster specifically, Mark, I do want to talk about how they can build on the win that they picked up just last week.
Yeah, actually, this is to transition to something serious all of a sudden. Really interesting.
Are you telling me that business meeting wasn't a serious endeavor,
No,
Mark?
not at all.
Okay.
The
Golden
most
Guardians.
serious business meeting I've ever attended.
I'm very happy to see them pick up their win last week, but I think a lot of people on Twitter and on the community were a little frustrated with how long it took to close out the win, and this is a very green roster, so I'm not mad or upset that, you know, they played a little safe, but I think when trying to reach the next level, finding the opportunities to slam the door closed when you have that chance should absolutely be jumped on, quite literally in this instance with a pretty much full health Tristana, able to get the resets. There are a number of low health members on the side of 100 Thieves there that they could have used the resets on to hop down that line. This was 36 minutes into the game. You know, it took another 20 minutes basically to end the game from here, but if they got that ace after the Drake Soul, they're pretty much in the clear. And I understand the mindset from newer players. Be like, okay, we got the Drake Soul. It's a bit of a sketchy situation. Let's reset. Let's go back to Baron and play it by the numbers. But the best teams and the best players know when the enemy has, you know, overextended, and they punish that. And I think that's one of the areas that while Golden Guardians is on this upward trajectory, they're improving week over week. That aggressiveness is one of the things I want to see them look for in team situations.
Piggybacking on that, I think you kind of said some of it, but I think it is good to call out that this is something that they can easily build on. So, like, while it was really frustrating to see them not take those opportunities over and over again, despite getting the win, I do think that this is something where you can have the foundation there to be like, hey, now we just need to be a little bit more aggressive. And that is hard because a lot of times you're just thinking in your head, okay, we need to like play by the rules, etc. But I don't think this is unsalvageable. And I think Golden Guardians in their more recent game, I really like their draft, which I talked about last week. But then B, I think you can look at this game, find some really easy fixes and build from there, which is always good if you're a coach looking at this lineup and how you performed.
Having been in somewhat of a similar scenario as GGS, where you are kind of like a snapped-in roster and you're just expected to go in and do your best, I know what it feels like for them where they're winning a game. I've been in this multiple times, actually, where you've been in a winning game and you make kind of a snap engage where you're just telling your team, go, 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 go. You go in, you engage, and it just ends up catastrophic. Like when I was playing, it was the 200 years of Felios that got the best of us many times. And then that would happen, and we'd lose right after, and it's like, well, damn, maybe we just shouldn't have done that. So in their heads, and, you know, this is just my opinion, what they're thinking is like, okay, we've got our lead, so now they're going to build it up small steps. They're just a little win after little wins. And we see the better teams, they take little wins and bring it to really big gains for themselves. Mm-hmm. But when you're kind of a newer team, you don't want to take those enormous risks. And if you're confident in like your late game scaling, you can just take those small wins and eventually win the game, even if it's a little sloppy.
Well, I think that just speaks to the intensity of late-game moments and the overall tension that you can feel in those late-game moments where nobody necessarily wants to be the person to lose the game, to make that catastrophic mistake from a winning position, and sometimes that can result in inaction to some degree. But beyond that, and I'm sure you can attest to this as well, Alorum, I imagine late-game moments like that much harder to practice. We hear this all the time from pro players. Very rarely does a scrim end up in the scenario of a 50-plus minute game where you're securing a third or fourth Baron and fighting for an Elder Drake. And so for most of these guys, that could have very well been, the first, second, third time they've ever experienced something of that intensity. And so, of course, we'll look for them to continue building on that experience. They got their work cut out for them here today against Cloud9, and currently in first place. I do want to talk about the big ticket import. Again, it's Perkz. But what's the conclusion? Is he in form at this point, now 9 games in?
I mean, I think Perkz has been performing really, really well. I know a lot of people are joking, like, oh, just put him on 80 carries now, and he's great, right? He still gets to play mid, and then he's playing Tristan and Lucian. I think even in the Lucian game that they lost, he performed really well individually. And more importantly, I think Perkz' increase in performance from what we saw in lock-in tournament, not lockdown, is a benefit of C9 also just communicating a lot better. So where previously we were like, how is he going to get along with Blabber? How is he going to get along with the rest of the team? I think Perkz is always a player who, again, as the team communication improves, he is going to look significantly better, not only because he's a very strong individual player, but because he does have a really strong voice on a team and he understands the game very well.
I mean, outside of that, Mark, we've kind of seen a small shift in play style, it seems, for Cloud9 in moving away from carries in the top lane for Fudge and indexing a little bit more towards playing through the more consistent bot lane, particularly, Sven as an AD carry. Do you think that that's a sustainable approach, though? Because we've talked about this plenty, is, being one-track minded in your style, not being able to play to the top side. Is that something you'd be concerned with? Do they need to keep trying?
I mean, I think they don't need to abandon it, and I don't think they have. We talked about this on the dive earlier this week, and we compared them to being like the Power Rangers right now. Like, everyone on C9 is playing pretty well, and at different moments, they're all going to get the spotlight on them. They're going to get the final hit. And so there's definitely moments where it's like, okay, Sven's the guy, Blabber's the guy, Perkz is the guy, and Fudge has had a couple of those on those kind of games where people in week 1 were doing that Ignite Camille thing. It showed that you can play through him. I don't think that has to be your first option. He can be the Blue Ranger, but he is still someone you can play through.
One thing I want to bring up is something that Alarum touched upon in the very beginning of this countdown, is that Blabber on this patch is going to be a really interesting jungler to watch, right? Because he was already playing the Rek'Sai previously and even earned a ban for it. So if we are going to see any shift in the more like gank-heavy CC junglers, I actually expected to see Blabber more than other junglers in the region.
I mean, yeah, that as well as possibly the Elise that I heard, dropped in that earlier discussion as well. Will be very exciting to track him, particularly as one of the more aggressive junglers. So let's wrap things up with some predictions. I'm hoping that you guys differ a little bit here as we start the rematches. That's the exciting thing about the second round robin, is that all of these are now rematches. And hey, looking at that second game of the day, we got the TSM vote for Alorum, while there's faith from the other two in the Team Liquid comeback. But Alorum, you're taking the favorite by score line in TSM. What's your reasoning there?
Well, besides you said the word faith, and I have faith in TSM right now, which I know I've been doing bad on before. I remember in lock-in I had faith in TSM and it came back to bite me. But they have been on this kind of upswing, and I know TL has all these superstars and they're a pretty consistently good team, but they just don't have the, I don't know what to call it, the oomph factor that TSM has right now. I feel like they are on such a big morale, and like the entire team is feeling real good that they could continue this upswing and this momentum leading into this match. TSM has my faith right now.
I gotta say, I agree with Alorum in a lot of ways. Like, I respect him for picking the TSM here thing, because I expect a lot of people would be like, Emily and I picked T out because we're just like holding on to the past, Yeah. Alorum's an early adopter, and I respect that, but I couldn't get over it. I was like, no, TL should be so much better than they are, and I'm just holding out till they finally actually show their true potential. But we haven't seen it in a while now, and TSM has had a pretty good couple of weeks, so I wanted to go with it, but I couldn't get over what my head was telling me.
Yeah, I want to bring this to Emily, though, because I remember, Emily, you were the one who was kind of looking at what preseason tournaments, had some data by looking at, champions and looking over in the LPL Demacia Cup. Do you feel like we're reading too much into the lock-in champions Team Liquid here now?
No, I mean, I I actually think that I said this last week too, but like I'm not super concerned about TL. I think they're still going to end up as a finalist, if not like a victor, but definitely as like a finalist in this split. The big thing about TL for me that I wanted to say, and the reason why I bet on them here, outside of the fact that usually when I bet on TSM I lose, is that I like curse them, is that I think that when you look at TL's games, it comes down to outside of some draft stuff, like one or two plays that could have gone differently. And so I think that's something that's really easy to, it should be really easy to fix with this lineup. And we've already seen them work really well together. And we've even in their last game already seen them address some of the problems that they had, right? Like I talked about how they were really unable to convert a lot of those advantages topside. And we saw them, go bot and exert pressure over the map that way in their last game. So I think that's what I'm looking for and why I am picking TL in this matchup. But I do agree that like I'm not going to be shocked if TSM when they're also looking really good.
Split decision when it comes to Game 2 from my analysts here. But for now, we're going to hand it over to Pastry and Azael for Game 1. As we go, let's get a quick word of sage advice from the literal world champion himself.
And now, it's time for sage advice from a literal world champion.
Need 50 gold to complete your item? No problem. Don't worry about it. Just go last at the Nexus.
This has been sage advice from a literal world champion.